What if I told you every choice you've ever made, what to eat for breakfast, who to love, even whether you clicked on this video, was never really your choice? What if free will, the one thing we cling to as proof of our individuality, is nothing more than a comforting illusion? Stay with me, because in this 3-part series, we're going to uncover the hidden war between freedom and determinism. We'll see how philosophers, scientists, and even your own brain challenge the story you've been told about being in control. And by the end, you'll walk away with a blueprint, not just abstract theory, but a way to live, even if free will turns out to be a lie. But here's the catch. None of it makes sense unless you finish the whole journey, because the illusion is deep. And if you stop halfway, you'll never see the full picture. Think about your day so far. You woke up and thought, should I stay in bed or get up? That felt like a choice. You scrolled your phone and decided which video to watch. That felt like a choice too. But what if those decisions were already set in motion, long before you made them? What if your brain, your upbringing, even the atoms of the universe had already decided for you? We live as though we are free agents steering our lives. Yet science and philosophy whisper, maybe you're just riding a train on fixed tracks, mistaking the view out the window for steering the engine. This question is as old as philosophy itself. The Stoics believed everything is determined by fate, woven into a cosmic order. But they also believed wisdom meant aligning yourself with that order-accepting necessity as freedom. Epicurus, on the other hand, tried to rescue free will by suggesting atoms sometimes swerve unpredictably, creating space for choice. Augustine wrestled with it through Christianity. If God knows everything, are we still free? If He predestined our path, are our sins and virtues truly ours? From the very beginning, human beings have sensed a tension. We feel free, but the universe feels fixed. Fast forward to the 17th century. Isaac Newton revealed a universe running like a machine, obeying laws of motion, so precise that in theory, everything could be predicted. Enter Laplace's demon, a thought experiment that said if there were a mind that knew the position and velocity of every particle in the universe, it could calculate the future with absolute certainty. Every decision you think you make would be nothing more than the unfolding of those equations. If that's true, then free will isn't just difficult, it's impossible. For centuries, determinism was a philosophical debate. But in the 20th century, science raised the stakes. Neuroscientist Benjamin Libet ran a famous experiment in the 1980s. Subjects were asked to press a button whenever they decided to. They reported the moment they chose. But brain scans showed something shocking. Their brains had already begun preparing the movement hundreds of milliseconds before they consciously decided. In other words, your brain makes the decision, then your consciousness takes credit afterward. You're not the author, you're the narrator. Later experiments only reinforced this. fMRI scans could predict the subject's decision seconds before they reported making it. If that's true, then your feeling of choice is just your brain running a story, convincing you that you're in charge. At this point, you might feel uneasy, because this isn't just theory, it cuts into how you see yourself. Think about the last time you blamed yourself for failing, or felt proud of an achievement. If free will is an illusion, does failure even exist? Can we take credit for success? And what about justice? If a criminal had no free will, should we punish them, or just treat them like a broken machine that needs fixing? Suddenly, the ground under our moral lives begins to shake. Here's the paradox. We feel free. Our entire psychology is built on that sensation. If you didn't feel free, you'd collapse into despair. You'd never get out of bed. But the feeling of freedom doesn't prove freedom is real. Just like the feeling that the earth is standing still doesn't mean it ascends to spinning at 1,000 miles per hour. So where does that leave us? Are we puppets? Are we free? Or is there some third way? That is what we'll uncover in part 2. when we dive into the deepest battles between determinists and defenders of freedom. We'll see how philosophers tried to escape the trap, how modern science adds fuel to the fire, and why your shadow, the hidden part of your mind, might be the secret player in this entire debate. Most people will click away now, uncomfortable with the thought that their lives might not belong to them. But if you stay, you'll see what they don't. The truth about whether your freedom is real, and what it means for your future. Last time, we uncovered a disturbing possibility. Your brain may be making choices before you ever decide. From the ancient Stoics to modern neuroscience, the evidence points in one direction: free will might be an illusion. But that was just the beginning. Today we go deeper into the battlefield where philosophers, scientists, and even religions have fought over the meaning of freedom for centuries. Because if free will doesn't exist, then morality, responsibility, even your sense of identity start to unravel. At the heart of determinism is a simple claim: everything has a cause. Your thought right now is the result of your neurons firing. Those neurons fire because of your genetics, your childhood, your environment. Those causes trace back to your parents, their parents, all the way to the beginning of the universe. If every event has a cause, then in theory, your entire life is just the playing out of an infinite chain reaction. This is why Laplace's demon haunts philosophy. Imagine a mind that could know every detail of the universe, where each atom is, how fast it moves. That mind could calculate the future exactly. Your next word, your next love, your final breath, all predetermined. It sounds terrifying, but determinism has a brutal elegance. It explains why we act the way we do, without appealing to some mysterious freedom particle. Religion complicates this further. In Christianity, God is said to be omniscient. If he knows the future perfectly, then your choices are already known, set before you act. Does that leave any space for freedom? In Islam, debates raged for centuries between groups like the Qadarites, who defended free will, and the Jabrites, who argued for predestination. In Hinduism, karma suggests your current life is shaped by past actions. But if your future is tied to your past, where is true freedom? The tension is universal. Humans everywhere felt both the weight of fate and the spark of freedom. Fast forward to modern science. We saw Benjamin Libet's experiment: already your brain acts before you're aware. But the evidence doesn't stop there. John Dylan Haynes, 2008, used fMRI scans to predict a subject's decision up to 7 seconds before they consciously chose. Other studies show patterns of brain activity reveal your decision before you know it. If your brain has already decided, what is you? Just the witness, the narrator telling the story after the fact. This flips everything upside down. The self you defend, the one who says, "I chose this," may just be a storyteller, not the real driver. But not everyone surrenders so easily. Enter compatibilism, the idea that free will and determinism can coexist. How? By redefining freedom. Freedom doesn't mean breaking causality. It means acting according to your own desires, without external coercion. If you rob a bank because someone held a gun to your head, that's not free will. But if you rob it because you wanted to, then even if your desires were shaped by the past, the act is still yours. Philosopher David Hume argued this centuries ago: the freedom worth defending isn't magical escape from cause and effect. It is the ability to act without chains. Modern compatibilists like Daniel Dennett agree. They say free will is real enough for morality, even if we're made of atoms obeying physics. But why do we feel free at all? Some psychologists believe it's an evolutionary trick. If you didn't feel free, you wouldn't try. You'd collapse into passivity. So maybe consciousness evolved to give us the illusion of choice, not because it's true, but because it's useful. Think about it. The sensation of freedom keeps you motivated, helps society run, and gives meaning to reward and punishment. The illusion itself may be the secret fuel of civilization. But here's the danger. If people stop believing in free will, what happens? Studies show that when subjects are told free will doesn't exist, they become more likely to cheat, lie, or give up on difficult tasks. Why bother trying if it's all predetermined? On the other hand, believing in absolute free will can also crush you with guilt. If you fail, it must be 100% your fault. If you're poor, sick, or unlucky, it must be your bad choices. Both extremes are traps. Total determinism breeds apathy. Absolute free will breeds cruelty. The challenge is finding a middle way. Here is a Jungian twist. Maybe your resistance to determinism isn't just intellectual, it is psychological. The ego hates the idea it isn't in control. When you hear free will is fake, your shadow whispers, if that's true, then you're just a machine. You're nothing. But what if that's another illusion? What if understanding determinism could set you free not from causality, but from unnecessary shame, regret, and fear? That's the path we'll explore in Part 3. We've seen both sides. The determinists who argue you're just a chain reaction. The compatibilists who redefine freedom to save meaning. The psychologists who say freedom is just a survival illusion. But here is the question that really matters. How do you live if free will is fake? Do you just give up? Or can you find a deeper kind of freedom within determinism itself? That's where we go next. In Part 3, we'll map out a blueprint for living as if your choices matter, even if the universe says they don't. And you'll see why, paradoxically, the illusion of free will might be the most important tool you'll ever have. Most people will never get that far. They'll stop here, content with arguments. But if you stay, you'll all discover what philosophers and psychologists rarely tell you, the way to turn determinism into power, not despair. In Part 1, we discovered the unsettling evidence. Your brain makes decisions before you do. In Part 2, we entered the battlefield of philosophy, determinism, compatibilism, religion, and science, and saw how the idea of free will has been defended, redefined, or dismantled. Now we face the ultimate challenge. If free will is just an illusion, how should you live? Do you throw up your hands and say, well, nothing matters, it's all predetermined? Or is there another way to live powerfully, even without absolute freedom? That's where our blueprint begins. The first step is the hardest. Accept that you are not an absolute author of your life. Your genetics were chosen for you. Your upbringing shaped you. Even your deepest desires were planted long before you noticed them. This isn't a reason to despair. It's a reason to stop blaming yourself for everything. Think about guilt. How many sleepless nights have people spent replaying mistakes, believing they could have done differently? But if determinism is true, you couldn't have. You did what you were always going to do. This doesn't erase responsibility. It reframes it. Responsibility is no longer about cosmic blame, but about shaping the future from where you are now. Like a chess player, you didn't choose the position of your pieces at the start of the game, but you do play the board in front of you. If freedom is limited, then the real game is about expanding your influence inside those limits. Think of your mind as a river. You didn't choose where it begins, or the rocks in its path. But you can learn to steer your boat. Habits. By repeating actions, you shape the probabilities of your future self. Environment. If you surround yourself with toxic people, you're likely to echo their patterns. If you change your environment, you change your trajectory. Awareness. When you catch yourself before reacting, you create a gap between stimulus and response. Viktor Frankl called this gap the last freedom no one can take away. This isn't free will in the absolute sense. It's practical freedom to navigate, if not to break physics. If free will is fake, do criminals get a free pass? Not exactly. Imagine a dog that bites people. You don't say the dog had free will. you still restrain it, train it, or remove it from society for safety. Responsibility becomes about consequences, not cosmic blame. Philosopher Dirk Perboom calls this the quarantine model. Punishment isn't about vengeance. It's about protecting others and reforming behavior. If society embraced this, prisons would change. Instead of cages of suffering, they'd become centers of rehabilitation. Responsibility would mean guiding human behavior, not condemning souls. And on the personal level, it means this: stop hating yourself or others for things they could not have done differently. Instead, focus on what can change now. Here's the paradox. Even if free will is fake, meaning doesn't vanish. In fact, it deepens. Why? Because meaning doesn't come from metaphysical freedom. It comes from how you interpret your life. A musician may not choose her talent, but she still creates beauty. A parent may not choose every trait of their child, but they still love. A philosopher may not choose his thoughts, but he still searches for truth. When you drop the illusion of absolute freedom, you start to see life less as a personal achievement and more as a gift. You are not the sole author, but you are part of a story worth living. Here's the twist. Maybe the illusion of free will is itself useful. Evolution didn't design us to know truth. It designed us to survive. And the feeling of choice keeps us striving. So instead of rejecting the illusion, we can use it. Pretend you are free even if deep down you know the truth. Because acting as if might be the most powerful survival tool we have. Like a stage actor who knows the play is scripted, but still gives everything in the performance, you too can play your role fully. Finally, the deepest step. Transcend the idea of a separate chooser at all. Many spiritual traditions, from Buddhism to Stoicism, echo this. They teach that freedom isn't found in choosing more, but in loosening the grip of the ego. When you stop clinging to the illusion that I control everything, you open to something bigger. In Buddhism, this is nirvana. In Stoicism, it's aligning with the Logos. In psychology, it's flow moments where action happens effortlessly, beyond willpower. In these states, the question of free will dissolves. You're not free or unfree, you're simply being. So, what if free will really is an illusion? It means you are shaped, but not powerless. You are responsible, but not guilty in the cosmic sense. You are limited, but capable of influence. You are not the absolute author, but you are a vital character in the unfolding story. The blueprint is simple. Accept the limits. Expand your influence. Redefine responsibility. Find meaning without illusions. Use the illusion when it helps. Transcend the ego. And here's the final paradox. Maybe free will is fake, but the illusion of free will? That illusion may be the very thing that makes us human. So tonight, when you make a choice, whether it's calling someone you love, pursuing a dream, or simply pausing to breathe, ask yourself, was that me or the universe acting through me? And then smile. Because either way, it was always going to happen.